Renaissance history here, but I am trained in the classical tradition, and this semester, at sort of last minute decision, I am going to be teaching a class called Ancient Rome, History and Legacy. That's what this mini class is for. It is a lower division class. It fulfills the pre-modern requirement for the history AOC. It is appropriate for first years. I hope I don't have to cap it, but I will if I need to. I think the course description said I would cap it at 20. I might go to 25 or 30. We'll have to see. I'll pretty much make that decision on Monday. So if you all have questions, blah, blah, blah. So this course, Ancient Rome History and Legacy, what do I mean by that? Yes, this is a class on the history of ancient Rome. We are going to start with the origins of Rome in roughly 1300, 1000, who knows what BC. We will go all the way up to 650 AD, which is the definitive fall of the classical empire under Justinian. It is that. It is also going to be, however, a consideration, because I am a person trained in the classical tradition, of how those events have shaped our worldview today. Of how ancient Rome and its ideas and people and stuff have shaped our notions today of what Western civilization is, and well, pretty much the Romans defined the notion of Western civilization as we currently have it. It's that same idea of Western civilization that is currently being challenged and taken apart by scholars and activists and all sorts of people that you read about on the news. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that. Here is an example for you. Anybody know what this is?
It's that political cartoon that Ben Franklin did.
It is a version of that. So that's a thing about that's like it exists in multiple points in history to begin with. It is based on the thing that Ben Franklin did. David?
It's the Unite the Right thing from Charlottesville.
Exactly. It is a poster that was designed and used for the recent rally in Charlottesville. All of those different bits and pieces have logos of different white nationalist, racist, all those nasty things. Logos from those groups that they were saying, oh, we need to unite and go to this white supremacist rally in Charlottesville. What is that?
That's the Roman flag.
That is, well, it is a version of the Roman flag. Yes, it says SPQR on it. That is one of the great logos of the Roman Empire. You see a version of it right here on your handout. That's essentially what it is. Now, the interesting thing is that as far as we know, the Romans did not use a flag that looked like this. That's kind of a later invention of what people thought the Romans did. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about in this class. But what are the Romans doing in a white supremacist rally? In the middle there.
Silver region of America, or are we talking like that as a previous, a symbol of restoring the great empire of Rome under white people?
Right. Okay, so yes, it is a logo that white supremacists use today. They happen to like Rome because they imagine that Rome was a militaristic white society and they're trying to sort of restore its values. Any other ideas?
You kind of want like a representative, like outside, like they want like a symbol of something powerful, because you know that the Roman Empire was something very powerful, something historical, something very big, and big part of history back then and today.
Right, so this notion of universal empire that basically starts with the Romans. That's exactly right. Who else has worked with or built on or adopted notions of universal empire?
Oh, I was just going to say Mussolini.
Mussolini.
Every emperor of the Holy Roman Empire was denied their Holy Roman
Northern Empire, exactly. Yes, good.
Empire.
Right.
Great Britain.
Yes, the British Empire. Come on, who's got the really obvious one for me? Pink shirt.
America?
That wasn't what I was thinking of, but yes, very obvious.
The Nazis.
The Nazis, Hitler, yes, very good. Okay, so one of the things we're going to talk about is this notion of second and third Romes. Right? If Rome is the first universal empire, who then inherits that heritage and gets to take on the mantle of universal empire. Constantinople was called the Second Rome. Aachen under Charlemagne was called the Second Rome. See this guy right up here? That's him. Right, and that's exactly. So that's why the Nazi Empire was called the Third Reich. That's basically what it means, the Third Empire. Roman. It starts with the Romans. And so what we have here is a history that builds on this notion of the Romans as very, very powerful and bizarrely Aryan. White. And there's actually been, just in the last couple of weeks, a huge tweet storm on Twitter and elsewhere about a classicist who made a point on Twitter about a recent BBC documentary, the protagonist of which was a black guy in the Roman army in Roman Britain.
That would have been fine. That would have been fine, especially after conquering.
Of course. But like, people freaked out. So anyway, that's one of the things that I've actually assigned for week one, is some of the stuff on that recent tweet storm. Mary Beard, who is like one of the grande dames of classics in England, and who is one of the scholars who's been most willing to go, on Twitter and like confront white supremacists and say, look, dude, I'm an expert on this. You are wrong. So it's actually really interesting to watch. And that's basically what this class is about. It's going to be about ancient Rome, and you're going to learn stuff about ancient Rome, but then we're also going to talk about how those events, those ideas, those people have been used, twisted, misinterpreted, reinterpreted in the centuries since. One thing I'm rather proud of here is the pictures on this handout that refer to things in the course description. So you've got Charlemagne, you've got Mussolini and fascism, you've got the French Foreign Legion and Vercingetorix. If you haven't read the course description, that's wacky because French people are like, yay, French Foreign Legion. That's based on the Roman Empire. Yay, Vercingetorix. That's the guy that resisted the Roman Empire. So how do they celebrate both of those things at once? Well, it's convenient. So we've got those. We've got this SPQR flag that kind of looks like a Roman flag, but was actually invented by somebody for a version of Total War online. You've got a bare-chested George Washington in a toga. I am not making this up. This thing actually existed. It was made for very serious artistic purposes in the 1840s. And then we have at the very bottom, which again we're going to talk about next week in class, the Capitoline wolf. Right. And the Romulus and Remus are 15th century. And the wolf, which for centuries really, has been held up as like the first great artwork of the Romans. It's Etruscan. It was built, it's like a founding object of the Roman Empire. It's medieval. They just figured this out like 3 years ago. The way that the bronze was cast, there is no way that it could have been made in the classical period. And again, people freaked out. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. It's like, well, okay, why do people care so much about this history? What are they using it to do? Why is it so bound up with their identities? Stuff like that. So, okay, that gives you a little bit of a sense of what we're going to be talking about. I have textbooks to show you. The two textbooks that I'm asking people to buy are this one, David Potter's Ancient Rome, A New History. You can see that it's a new history. It's taking a slightly different tack from the traditional because look, it has women on the front. What's up with that? We're going to talk about that too. This is Joanne Shelton's As the Romans Did. It's a source book in Roman social history. So all sorts of crazy stuff that isn't specifically about like the doings of emperors. There are then three others, one of which I don't have with me today, that are basically primary sources. So we've got Suetonius, we've got the first 5 books of Livy, and we've got Plutarch's Roman Lives. That's the one I don't have with me. Question?
Are we going to end up discussing Justinian's secret history?
You mean Procopius' secret history?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Justinian is like the last week, but the secret history is like the best thing about him, so I think it's likely. So, now the thing about these is these are recommended, these are not required. Classics is a field that has taken that has benefited greatly from the internet and from public domain translations. So there are plenty of public domain translations of these things out there on the internet. It's fine with me if you read those, but keep in mind that they all basically date from about 1900 or earlier. And so their English can be kind of hard to get through. These are all recent translations. They're much sort of easier for the modern ear. So that's the sort of decision that you have to make for yourself. What else have I put on the sheet? Basic expectations, some reading, some weekly writing assignments, quizzes. The source analysis papers I should talk a little bit about. Those are very short. They're going to be about 4 pages each. And basically, normally what I would do is have you choose like a source or an object or something, and then like write about why it's important for historians. This is equivalent to Professor McCarthy's document commentaries, a primary source analysis if you've ever done that in another class. That is what I would normally do. In this class, we're going to actually split it in half. Choose a modern object, and I mean that in the loosest sense. I mean that basically meaning post-Roman. Tell me about it in historical context, and then tell me about what it means now, or what it meant later. So, like, you could talk about the she-wolf, you could talk about why the she-wolf was important in Roman history, but then you could also talk about how it is now the mascot of the AS Roma soccer team. Right? So basically what I'm looking for is an analysis of why this thing or idea or person is important at 2 different points in history. So it's going to be kind of cool like that. What else can I tell you? I put a course schedule on here about sort of giving you a kind of a chronological layout of what we're going to be talking about all the way through. That is sort of basically chronological. And then I've also listed some of the stuff that we're going to talk about on the kind of legacy thread. Will include Roman symbolism, like the SPQR. Race, gender, and the Romans. Why is it wacky that people should, well, no, not why is it wacky that people should object. Why would people object to the notion of a black general in Roman Britain? Orientalism, Christianity, bread and circuses, the ideas of republicanism and democracy, kind of historically, where do they come from? Neoclassicism, and then ideas of second and third Romes. So that just gives you a kind of a sense of the legacy stuff we're going to be talking about. Are there any questions? Yes?